Alrighty, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness. Listen, y'all, welcome to Working It Out Across Generations. We used to dealing with conflict, so all kinds of things come up. We just roll with it.
Yeah, technical difficulties is definitely one of them.
Because we like to vibe to our song, our opening song, and if you have ever heard it, I know you love it as well, and you understand what we're talking about. But we are going to keep working on getting it together. But in the meantime, it don't stop the show. So I'm Dr. Lynne.
I'm Justin.
And we are so happy that you tuned into Working It Out Across Generations. We have a great topic today, as usual.
Yeah. So today's topic is there a place for gossip or spilling the tea? I think this is a very, very interesting topic, simply because for so long we have seen people, make a career out of something that is so like every day. We don't even realize sometimes that we are gossiping, even in the exchanges of talking to people and talking of others. And so to see that become something that's marketable, to see that become something that millions will tune into and really support, that's really an interesting thing. And I think especially in my generation, we've definitely taken that and run with it. There are podcasts left and right of people, doing gossiping, spilling tea, right? Exposing certain natures of certain things. And I think that in some respects, yes, it can be cool. It could be something that is used for safety of someone or some situation. However, there's a line for everything. So, let's have a conversation about where that line even possibly is, if there is one, because there are a lot of thin lines that we are all walking all the time.
Yeah. As time changes, people changes, things change, right? Careers change. And this topic I was extremely interested in because I know that there are so many people now, especially with social media, who are gossiping, right? Spilling the tea, right? On other folks. And it has become something that people enjoy. I'm fascinated by people and the things that we get into and start to really enjoy. Like reality TV is one of those things for me. I'm just like, okay, folks really love this, and folks of all different ages and backgrounds. So
yeah.
I'm not judging that.
For
I
sure.
just was surprised at how reality TV took off, and that's a form of, well, it's peering into somebody else's life and lifestyle, but also that promotes the opportunity for someone to have their own show and spill the tea, right? I'm gonna call it what it's called these days, right? Spill the tea, which to me is just plain old fashioned gossiping. But it's been really interesting to see how many people don't have a problem with it, right? That they actually, Wendy Williams, her career was huge. And basically that's what she was doing, was gossiping about all of the different stars, and you can call it something else if you want to, but that's basically what she was doing. The one thing about her is that she at least was in a position to know some of those people personally, so it can be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about a little bit about that later, but primarily you're seeing more and more people, even not even just shows, because you do have other shows where that's basically what they're doing, spilling the tea. Even TMZ, come on, like, let's be real.
Yeah.
That's gossip.
Absolutely. That's not news reporting.
Right.
That's straight up
like,
stirring the pot.
Right, stirring the pot. And people love it.
Yeah,
At the same time, though, I know that it causes great conflict for some folks. And so it's a wonderful thing to explore. Like, what's the value of it besides someone being able to make a career or get millions of followers, because that's the other thing. And I know that that leads to money as well. But basically, what is it that we really love I say we, right? Because I'm not going to act like I'm better than anybody else. These aren't necessarily the shows that I watch, but have I watched them? Of course I have, right? Have I been interested in, hey, what's going on with so and so? Like, I'll ask you, oh, did you hear so and so? So, hey, listen. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. I'm not sitting up here holier than thou. Not at all. But it's still very intriguing because I do know, just even from my own childhood, which I'll talk about in a minute, just how much trouble people would get into for gossiping. Like it was a rule that you do not gossip.
Wow.
It was considered really bad to do. And now we have come a whole long way for it to be actually very different and sanctioned. And but don't okay, I'll talk about it when I talk about my generational experience with this topic.
Go ahead.
No. Oh, okay. So growing up, like I said, worst thing you could do, maybe not the worst, but really bad. You could get in trouble with teachers, principals, people, church leaders, whoever, and certainly your parents if you were gossiping about someone. We call it talking behind their back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was something that we not only were taught not to do, but worked on not doing. And if caught or confronted doing it, would feel badly and own up. Yes, I was talking behind their back, and I know that wasn't right to do. And then as I got older, I realized a lot of the gossiping was going on among the very same adults who were telling us that we shouldn't be gossiping because many offices have water coolers, some still do, and it was the phrase over the water cooler, at the water cooler. That's what people were doing. They were gossiping, whether it's about their boss or their boss's wife or what, or a coworker.
A coworker, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They were gossiping about, and people were like,
meet me at the cooler.
Really
let's talk about it. Yeah,
let's talk about it.
That's interesting.
Yes, so that was a piece. And then I'm sorry, but as a child, as a teenager, I was privy to lots of church goers gossiping. There were plenty of people that talk about the pastor, talk about sister so-and-so, brother so-and-so. Did you hear about what they did? Listen, they were doing the most as well. So it was interesting to be like, wait a minute,
right.
I thought this was wrong.
Right.
But also in my time, the saying that was incredibly popular that adults would say to you is, do as I say, not as I do. Oh my God. Talk about a get out of jail free card. Y'all play Monopoly, you know what get out of jail free card. Like, so you can do whatever you want to do.
That's gotta be That's gotta be manipulative. Any one of y'all that had to deal with that, I apologize on behalf of people I don't know I'm speaking for. But I've never heard a thing like that.
Because I don't say.
Yeah, no, right. But like, I'm just saying, even in other, like my friends haven't heard that. We've never heard.
Come on, y'all. Anybody out there watching?
Do as I say. Wow.
Do as I say.
And then not as I do.
As I do. Oh yeah.
That's I feel like I've probably heard that.
Separate set of rules for being grown.
Yeah.
Grown.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I probably heard that in like, maybe some of the movies I've seen or like anything like that. I'm very versed, and my parents are very much cultured us. So like but in terms of in our own household, in terms of things like my friends here, like I don't think we're really getting that kind of advice. And I would love to hear, anyone who's received that, what that felt like to hear that. Because I've only been open. Yes, but I'm saying any other adults because I've really only been open to the complete opposite. Like the complete opposite where it's like really like we're all people here. Like we're people that make up this family and people that make up this home. So that's very interesting. That's actually very, very interesting. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I think for me, as I get into my generation, as I'm thinking and I'm brewing, especially off of hearing what you're saying, and I think one thing that was pretty interesting in my like growing up, as I'm still growing up, I'm 23, but like, in my growing up, right, was this really was like, in my mind, something that was just like a middle school, like high school thing, right? Like, I honestly even thought that when you get to college, that like, it's like, all right, we're in college now, we're all adults. Yes, we're in school, but adults. So it's like, what are we really talking about the next man for, especially in a negative light, right? And so when I now see, people in my generation who have run with the Wendy Williams style, or if not even that style, just like the bringing on the people that people want to hear from, right? Bringing on the people that, is going to get you an audience, right? And trying to get them to, give up something that's, I guess, juicy for whatever reason, right? And so when we talk about like overall platforms, I think that's really like where it's interesting for me. It's like when we talk about overall platforms, when we talk about, growth and really what that looks like, right? It's not like we're not going to gossip in some way, coexisting with each other every day, right? But the making of a career, right? The fact that the water cooler has now become like a studio, or if not a studio, I'll even just bring it down to, a more everyday person type of vibe, right? Where it's like just a comment section in on a social media platform, right? Like, I think the reality is, I personally, what has been affected by gossip. I've gossiped, like, we're all human. I think that makes us human, right? Like, I think it's part of the human experience that we're going to talk about one another, and we're going to feed off of what someone else is doing, right? As a way of possibly influencing something within ourselves, right? I think that's a natural human thing. Now, when you go and you make a platform or make a post, right? Specifically, trying to move away from those just natural human functions, that's where I think it can get a little dangerous, a little hurtful, a little unsafe for people, right? We don't know what's being spread out there. And I think another thing that's interesting is, we sometimes, not all the time, but we sometimes, if this is true for your generation, let me know, but we sometimes focus more on who's gossiping than what the actual gossip is, like the contents of it, right? So for instance, like if someone did something, right, it's okay, like that sounds bad, or that sounds like, something that I wouldn't want done to me. But then again, who are you? And why should I trust, this source and da da da? And that somehow became like part of the topic or part of the equation, in which it kind of threw me off, kind of confused me. It kind of, in some ways veered into the conversation, but away from the conversation when you bring up questions like, who's fit to be in those positions and who's equipped to be in those positions. Like Wendy Williams, right? Like who appointed Wendy Williams the one to be like, you should be the one to do this, and we can trust you, and you're a source that we trust, and all of these things. So bring on all the people, bring on the messier, the better, all that stuff. And so, I think my generation definitely, just because we only have more of everything, right? We have more opportunities for, I guess, good or bad to come out of it, right? Like I think the only time good comes out is when someone's like safety has been threatened, and a person needs to be held accountable for their actions, and all of these things, right? We see other people coming out right after that first initial whatever situation. So I think in some respects it can be, I guess, like valuable, but I think in a lot it's just a lot of people trying to tear each other down and do whatever they can to make that a part of their name, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, when I was coming up, also they would say if you gossiped about someone, you were jealous of them.
Yeah, I did remember hearing that. I remember hearing that.
Said, and so thinking about that, and I think that sometimes is true. But now as it's evolved to spilling the tea, one of the things that I know is that there's this saying out there also that any publicity is good publicity, right? No publicity is bad publicity, even negative publicity. So sometimes the good for people is, well, they talked about me, right?
Yup.
And
Yup.
now my name is known or my work is known. People are Googling me or
Yep.
whatever.
That's another positive in some respects.
In some respects,
Yeah.
depending on how the person really takes it. If the person takes it as that, okay. Sometimes, though, it starts beef, right? It starts people coming for each other because of what's happened. I know, people who do this for a living or whatever, they've all experienced somebody not liking what they're saying, or the fact that they said it or spilled it. They maybe didn't even know they knew it, and then it was broadcast to a wide audience, and so they did not like it and may have gotten it really upset. So I'm sure that they've experienced that. I know for myself, I experienced losing friends. I was in a friendship with a group of mostly women, but it was a group. We were a group together doing theater work, and I had been really good friends with some folks. We would talk after rehearsals and call each other and all those things. And then suddenly I made a new friend who I did not know had a reputation for really vicious gossiping. And I lost, like, they didn't stop being friends with me, but they never would call me anymore. And someone finally told me, look, your friendship with her is really, like, love you, but, and she was very gossip. But here's the thing. Just like Wendy Williams was likable, lovable, she is too, to this day. Unfortunately, I'm still friends with all of the people, but it never returned to what it was in terms of being able to really, for them to trust me and feel safe.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I truly do. I don't know that she ever gossiped about me, but hey, why would I be safe? Why would I be off limits? So she might have, but it never got back to me. And so I never had to really confront it, but I did confront her about the fact that she was gossiping, and tried to get her, because I was privy to some of the things that she was sharing, and I knew that they weren't true what she was sharing, But anyway, she was committed to it, so I don't think she's ever stopped.
Yeah, and I think that's, like, unfortunate in the sense of just how many people have possibly trusted this person or someone like this person, and genuinely, had that, right? Because I think that, the gossip and the tea and all that stuff is stuff that, was said in private or held in a private manner, or, just not made for the masses. And so when you bring that to the masses, I can understand 1,000% how even just the people around you get affected too.
Right.
In the sense of, all right, well, if this could happen to them, this could definitely happen to me. So, and I think that, right, we talk about, like, just adults who don't get over their own way, right? Like that, we definitely still see that. And that's just unfortunate, because I wonder how much you really attract that's, like, positive and, like, grounding and of connectivity when you get there, and then that's what you do with it.
Right.
So that's just something, interesting and something to think about.
But that's also celebrity stuff, because we really are talking about that celebrity gossiping or spilling the tea has not replaced the everyday talking about your coworker, talking about your pastor,
family member, your relationship,
down, right?
Yep.
And in fact, it's probably added to legitimizing, like, it's okay,
absolutely,
to be spilling the tea, because, right,
people are making millions, right? Right, absolutely.
So
it's a great point.
If this child develops the gift of gossiping,
right,
they might have a career.
Right. We could have the next Wendy Williams, the next Alex Cooper, which is someone in my generation.
Right.
But
okay.
yeah. I know there's other Alex Coopers out there. Someone in my generation. But
Right.
so, I think, lines. If there's a line, where do we draw it? And I think that, it's just important to start the conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we did.
I do too, because I'm wondering if you all have even thought about if there's anything bad to it. And do you even know where the line is? Do you say I'm gossiping, or, just spreading information, or sharing
expressing myself,
whatever I know, or
Yep.
I don't know. And why do we get so excited about it? Why do we get excited hearing people's business put out there? I know the older I get, the less I'm interested. Particularly, I'm definitely don't want to hear it about people that I know. And if you're telling me, well, we'll get to that in a second. So let's move.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So
let's get into some ways in which gossip can cause conflict, right? I think plenty of us are thinking many things right now, some similar, right? So let's get into it. So number one, this is pretty simple, but the potential of spreading lies. So I wish I had this beautiful thing about this that I could say, right? But I think it just goes as simple as people interpret things differently, people hear things differently, see things differently, literally experience the world differently. So because you feel comfortable, right, sharing whatever it is with that person, it doesn't mean that they're going to see it the same way, feel it the same way.
Or spread it on, pass it on the same way.
Correct, right? And I think that with that, there are times where people are deliberately spreading lies. People are deliberately, twisting words. And I think there are times, a lot more times, that people simply hear things differently, internalize things differently. A lot of their own stuff shows up in these conversations. And so just the potential for spreading lies is just very, very high, right? Like we've all heard of the game or played the game Telephone. Like that game is a perfect example and model for just how much this stuff can lead to unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy ways of, coexisting, right? I see this as just the main thing, right?
Yeah.
You have a high potential of spreading a lie, even just by misinterpreting, let alone literally thinking, oh, I'm going to lie on this person or lie on this story.
Right.
So
I think most people, for me, do not know how to say they do not know. So
yeah.
First of all,
I think that's huge.
You
That's
gossiping,
huge.
And then somebody asks a question, right? Well,
Yep.
what about, and then the person gossiping just makes it up.
Yep.
They don't even.
That's huge.
They just make it up on the spot.
Yep.
So you don't even need the telephone game, because I thought of that too, right?
Yep.
You don't even need that.
Yep.
Because we do not know or are not comfortable with saying, I don't know, this is all I heard or this is all I know. We're going to add to the story, and then it definitely gets worse. And I can honestly say that I have experienced that when gossip is involved with folks, is that
that's
the
huge
potential. And then the platforms, there's so many platforms that you could spread the gossip on, and people will take that and run with it. Same thing with, if you tell somebody, then they don't remember every detail. So then the next person that they tell, they make it their own, right?
Everyone adds their own little flavor to the story. That's the entire point. Like, I so appreciate you saying that, because it's right. It's like, bro, I didn't even say that, or what? Like, that's not even how it went. And then you're gonna have to, if you even feel the obligation,
right,
clear your name or clear whatever it is, right? And so, I think so many good points you already made, but I could speak on just this one point a lot. I think just so much potential to spread lies, and be careful of that.
Right, and people are good with it too. If it comes out a lie, well, that's what I heard. Well, that's all I heard.
Right, and it's not
Right,
my story, so
right.
I don't have to feel the effects of anything afterwards.
Yes, and then I want to say one more thing. The person that
Jeez.
really gets on my nerves around the spreading of the lies is the one that's pretending to be your friend that brings it to you. Ooh, I heard so-and-so was talking about you, and this is what, like, doggone well, they are not bringing it to you to be a friend. They are bringing it to you to help spread this lie and see what potential it has for blowing things up.
So if you're that person, you're the problem. Anyway, let's next. Simple. Words can get misconstrued, right? As we said, like, people add their own little takes, their own little whatever. And I think the point that you made in the last one that really resonated with me is that people aren't comfortable with saying, I don't know.
Right.
I am very, very, probably too comfortable saying, I don't know. I don't have the answer, right? But I think that for me, it's freeing to do that, because then I'm getting closer to an answer that actually could resonate for me, right? Because from that point, I'm moving in a curiosity, I'm humanizing myself and knowing that I don't know everything. Like, I want to be very clear. This world is very vast, like very vast. I understand people travel and see stuff, and guess what? You could go back to that same place and see 1,000 new things that you didn't see from the last time. Right. So when we talk about everything that makes up the world, like, it's okay to just say, even with a part of a story, like, I don't know how that ended. This is all I got. And even then, I mean, I would say, like, why are you spreading all you got? But if that's what it comes down to, just out of not wanting words to get misconstrued, right? Not adding your own little flavor, your own little take. Even if you're just exaggerating, sometimes even just exaggerating stories is enough for someone to take it and run with whatever happened in a whole different light than what you might have been intending. And so really being clear about language, right? What words we're using, even when we're telling these stories, talking about, whatever, right? That we're speaking accurately.
Right. Yeah, but it definitely starts conflict, right? If you're misconstrued, especially again to the, I don't want to say no, I don't know, right? Somebody could say, the person who's being gossiped about, when they hear about it, or even if you're just gossiping to somebody else, they could say, well, I don't know what that means. What did they mean by that, right? So already there's the potential that words are getting misconstrued, because people don't always understand what's being said. Every word doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to everybody.
Yep.
So this is an easy one for causing conflict, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. And then all of these things leading up to, I think, the most, I don't want to say obvious. Nothing's obvious in this world, but, just the highest potential threat of this is the threat of physical violence.
Yeah.
I want to be very clear that even like we are losing people to gossip. Like, we've lost people because someone said this about another person. That person internalized it and interpreted, that information in a different way, which is exactly what you're speaking to, right? Certain words, right? I love that you even just said that. It's not even phrases. It's literally the words that make up the phrases that some people, it just lands differently, right? Culture. It's one of the things that we talk about. And so we've lost young people because someone said this about someone, and even if that was true or not, it clearly turned into let's turn this up because we live in a world that thrives off of violence, loves violence. Like, even just watching boxing and watching MMA, right? Like, all that stuff, like, that's still violence.
Sport, but
it's still violence, right? It's still war, or close to, not actual war. Please, but close to. And I think that because that's so much of what we know, right? We know that line for violence is already so thin among so many other aspects of life. When we bring in gossip, when we bring in spreading of information, personal information that, you know, you have been honestly privileged to find out or privileged to know about in some respects, and then you break that respect, it's never okay to take it to that level. We're simply saying that we live in a society where taking it to that level is more expected and more common than having dialogue like this, having the curiosity, having the humanization of saying, I don't know, or I apologize. And I got that wrong. I read that wrong. And we need more of that. I think we could save a lot more people, maybe not all conflicts, right? But we could save a lot more people even in these conflicts, with some of those things, with some acknowledgement for those things. That it's okay to not know. It's okay to get it wrong, and it's okay to apologize.
And be sure before you open your mouth spreading stuff that right, that this isn't something that could lead to that. There's some folks who enjoy that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, the thrill.
Will throw hands because of it, and it's definitely a big conflict starter to this day. There's somebody in somebody's school getting their behind beat because they were spreading gossip.
Yep, absolutely. All right.
So we were thinking, like, okay, so we know how it causes conflict. Are we saying we're with it or we're not with it? Like, what's good about it? So we just came up with, all right, well, if you're gossiping, spilling the tea, how do you soften the blow? Which means you actually got to think about it beforehand. My experience with people who are gossiping is that they ain't thinking about it. They just can't wait. They got this secret and they cannot wait to tell people. So they're not thinking about how to, if I gotta say this is what I do, this is what they're not thinking about, how do I soften the blow? So first thing for me is your delivery, because that tells me your intent right up front. Ooh, let me tell you what I just heard. Your intent is not for good. Trust and believe. You're not thinking about the impact. You are just delighting in this ish that you have heard and have the ability and the opportunity to spread. So I think it's important if your delivery is, listen to this. I can't believe that they did. Well, your goal is to shame. We did a whole show about that. So check it out. But
that was a good one.
It was a good one. But shame is not saying that you're really caring. That that you deliver it in a way huge. That I'm not trying to be mean. This is what I do, or I'm just telling you because I think you ought to know. That's a very different thing than shaming someone. So I think delivery is critical because, as I said, for me, delivery reveals intent.
Yeah, and I think it's become so much of a motor function of ours to be like, to get that secret out, right? That it's like subconsciously we don't even realize. It's always easier to look in hindsight, but we really are trying to train ourselves to catch this stuff ahead of time so that we don't have to look in hindsight too much. Or if we do, we're looking at something different and it lands differently. Yeah. So I appreciate that for sure.
The second thing in softening the blow is to teach off the experience. If you are sharing this, spilling the tea, because you want to teach off of this experience. So what does this, so here I'm telling you about this, maybe it's a celebrity, they left their wife or their husband and they revealed all the things that they were doing as a result, or what, or why it resulted in them leaving them, or whatever, right? And you then decide, so let's really talk about this, y'all, right? Let's talk about what you think about what they learned or what you're learning from this. What do you think about the actions that they did? Has this ever happened to me? That's softening the blow if you're going to be, because you're still spilling the tea, right?
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, we tend to deal in the world of celebrities, but if you're talking about the everyday kind of thing that you're doing when you're spilling the tea or spreading the gossip, I have seen people who spill the tea and teach off of it in that way. So I feel like the intent is different than the maliciousness and the shaming, and I just don't care what happens with the information or the people that the information is about.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll speak personally, but I think that there are people that could relate to this. I know you definitely can, but when we talk about speaking off of the experience, like I think that there are just so many different situations, right? And different landings for people. But I think for a lot of things, there are principles that are similar um, to certain situations, to the way certain people are conducting themselves, right? In which, in situations like that, I could see that as valuable, right? Like it's not even that my goal is to simply share all the behind the scenes, right? That's more of I'm shedding a light on something that is not talked about enough, or when it is talked about, it's not in this way.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, the principles of some of those things are like violence in relationships, right? Like that's something that we don't want, right? Like even the emotional, especially the emotional, right? So I think when we talk about, no one wants to, not no one. I think there are people who want to be heroes and like whatever, right? But like I think in moments like that, that's really us being students. Um, in that, you know, this is something that does go on, and something that goes on a lot more than we know. And I think that we need to bring this to our attention so that we can pay more, put more resources into it, put more conversation into it, whatever it is, right? But I think in things like that, it's very honorable to do so, in the sense of, what's coming out of it, big picture, especially when we can all get on board and agree like on certain things that, yeah, maybe the contents of the situation I haven't gone through, but the principle of it, right? The feelings that have come up around it, or certain things that you might feel that you feel, misjudged by, right? And all of these things, I think that we can get down with each other on that level in a lot more instances than we honestly vocalize. So I think that's very honorable.
Mm-hmm. And then the third is you actually know and care about the folks involved. The second part is the most important, because plenty of y'all know the folks you gossiping about. I'm not talking.
And you could give you know what, yeah.
Right. I'm talking about and care about the folks
that's real.
involved. So therefore, again, your delivery will be different. You may, whatever the reason is, you've decided that you need to talk about them behind their back. I don't know what the good reasons are for that, but look, like I said, we've all done it, and some of us are continuing to do it. But if the care is there, then the reason that you're doing it needs to be pretty important, right? That because otherwise, why not just have a conversation with them about what's going on, or what you heard is going, or what you think is going on? Because that happens too. People gossip about what they think is going on with no facts whatsoever. But if you really do care and you decided that you're not going to talk to them, or maybe you did talk to them and it just went over their head, or they didn't care to change the situation, or didn't care to engage with you about it. There's all kinds of reasons why they may not have had the conversation with you. But if you do care, then you're spilling the tea to people who might be able to help, I guess. That's what I'm thinking. Or who actually also care and might be able to help you talk things through. That, I mean, if you go on a social media platform, that's a whole different thing because that's so public. And the potential for the person who is being talked about, for them to see it, or certainly for someone to reach out to them
Send it to them.
and send it to them, or tell them you need to check this out. This is what's being said about you. That's all there. So, in caring about people, you really do have to think about, hey, I know these folks, and the reason that I'm spilling the tea on them is because I care and want to see if there's anybody who could help, or if anybody, or if you have thoughts about it, or if you have some advice that I might be able to share with them, then that's different than just spreading whatever the gossip is about them.
Yeah, I think just be careful of who you're talking to, and be careful of who you're asking those types of questions to as well, because you could be coming from a good place and still end up in the wrong hands, and come back and give your friend or your whoever that is in your life something that really does not work for them. And it's not that it would necessarily be your fault per se, but we know how people are. Like, whoever's the last to have said whatever that affects them in a way, they're gonna think and assume like, oh well, it's you, right? And you're the problem, right? And so really trust your sources, be careful of your sources, and then who you go to as sources for next steps. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, and I just want to, I'm just intrigued and interested. Why do we gossip, right? Why do we, is it that we're looking for distraction? Something in our life is, getting on our nerves, or bringing us down, or making us feel less than. And that's such an easy thing to feel these days, because people are always presenting their best life, in quotes, come on, their best photo, right? Or videos in public on social media. And it can make you feel like there's not enough going on in your life, or I don't feel good about myself. So that is a reason why some people do choose to gossip about other people. There's I'm interested, like I said, I'm interested in the reasons. Number one, that people gossip, and number two, that people really want to hear and tune in consistently to the gossiping, or whether it be online, or whether it be at inter-office spilling the tea. There's enough of an audience, clearly, that it no longer has the vicious reputation that it had when I was growing up. It's no longer. I think it's even one of the seven deadly sins. I don't know, y'all. Okay, because I done committed too many of them. I think myself to keep count of what the seven deadly sins are. And I think it's one of them that you don't do it, and yet here we are. It's making big money.
Big money. Stupid money.
Big reputation.
Stupid money.
For a lot of people. And here we are still doing it on the everyday life plane as well. So there's something there for us. I'd love for us to really think about. As I said, I am not sitting above anybody.
No.
I know.
Please never look at us like that. We will say this every episode we have to. We are students learning with you until we go, just like any other person.
That's right.
So I really appreciate you reiterating that, because I will forever reiterate that. We are not always going to get it right. We are not always going to go into these things with the right intentions.
Yeah.
Right? Or sometimes we know we're going to someone that we know is not feeding of the situation in a positive light. Right. And yet it's okay, right? It's like we're people, right? Mm-hmm. Let's humanize it a little more, in the sense of it happens. Now what do we do with it? Right. How do we do it so to soften the blow? Right? Because it is a blow. It hurts. It hurts in whatever respect. So
right. Yeah, and like I said, I know I've been guilty of it. I probably still am in terms of,
Yeah.
talking about something or someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am too, but yeah. Yeah.
I can always count on him to tell me the truth. So that's my holding up the mirror, child. But they both are actually.
Yeah, we both are. Shout out Big Bro. He's the one who taught me how to hold up the mirror to my parents.
So yeah,
Yeah,
there's something there
absolutely.
about it. But I also will say in my defense, I really don't. I'm not a spreader of it. If when you talk about like what softens the blow or whatever, if I'm sharing it, it's with people who know and care about the person.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
the one that's going to be
Yeah.
trying to tell people about, sister so and so,
Yeah.
or this or that, or coworker so and so. Is because I don't see the value in that, and then I also know from doing the work how much harm it can do to have that spread and then get back to the person, because in my experience it always does get back to the person. It's rare that someone doesn't find out that folks are talking about them behind their back.
Absolutely. There's an energy transfer going on, and we all are energy. We're all made up of energy. So I really appreciate you saying that, because I could even say that I think that, not speaking for anyone, but the person who would like be on the receiving end of that conversation, right? Let's say you go up to a couple of friends who are in the same friend group, right? Possibly experiencing the same thing, possibly might have even been in the situation that, got taken out of hand and all of that stuff. And you're talking about it, right, from that place of care. I know that, I've made mistakes with some of my friends, and they've gotten together to say, bro, like, we care about you. Like, we care about you. This happened. We felt like this, right? Like, we just want to know where you're at, where you're coming from. And then of course in the moment it's like, damn, like, the boys are talking about me behind my back, right? Like, that's crazy. But then when you really conceptualize the fact that, there are people who do care, there are people who, in those moments could have easily chose to go to the next person who doesn't know who you are and doesn't know a thing about you and trash your name and whatever, and give them something like that, right? But if you've ever been in that type of situation where like your friends will, a friend of yours or multiple will sit you down and have that conversation with you, definitely that's like an honor, a privilege, definitely nothing less than a teaching moment. And I think that, those are conversations that, I've valued some of them the most. Of course, not the contents of all of them, right? You never want to hurt your friends. You never want to say something out of pocket, right? But the fact that people will even let you know in that way is definitely something that, we never want to take for granted, as it's so easy to just meet someone and they say the right thing that makes you want to trash whoever for whatever happened, right? And so there's a lot here.
Yeah.
I think we could say a lot more on this, but if anything, we want to hear more about what gossip looks like to you, what spilling the tea looks like to you.
And is there a place for gossiping and spilling? Is it fine? Is it okay to do, and why?
And where do you personally draw that line? We all got lines that we draw in different places. We've all got, different thresholds for whatever, right? And rightfully so. So, there's a reason for that. It's not to just be putting people down and saying, oh, you're stronger or you're weaker. No, people are supposed to handle what they can handle when they can handle it, and so absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it was a great topic, and it's certainly interesting. It's always interesting for me to go back and pull up these memories, right?
That's
what was happening when I was growing up, and I actually hadn't really even thought about how much gossip was shunned and frowned on, and like I said, you got in trouble for it in the schools when I was growing up, and certainly with my parents. And again, let me tell you, the gossip that went through my household was epic. So again, the do as I say and not as I do rule was in play amongst all of the adults pretty much all of the adults in my life when I was coming up. And gossip was like their number one sporting activity. So thanks for tuning in. And I hope you tuned in on Amazon Fire TV or Apple TV or Roku or e360tv.com. You could definitely tune in on your TVs if you do that. So you can watch us on the big screen. If you checked us out on YouTube, hopefully you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can always catch the replays there. And our Facebook live, our Facebook page, rather, you can check us out live during the broadcast, or you can do the replays. But whatever you do, please join us, like, subscribe, talk about us. Y'all can talk about us. Y'all can spill the tea on the show to other people who can tune in.
So I don't know if we just want to go enabling behavior, but I will say thank you so much for tuning in. And as I say, you know, any like, any share, any view, we really do appreciate it. Small is all. We know that it all adds up, and it already is for us. So so much love, so much gratitude. Absolutely. And you know what we say at the end of these episodes, conflict is here to teach you something about yourself. So go out there and find out what it is. This is Justin.
And Dr. Lynn.
This was Working It Out. We'll see you next week.
All right. Across generations.
Okay. Jesus Christ.